Hi, I'm Brian,
And I'm Tom.
and we are the Dividend Dudes.
Today, we're going to be talking about current events.
Fun, happy, magical, enlightening current events.
There's
Fuzzy bunnies.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of news out there. There's a lot going on. It's a very interesting thing. We try to do these every so often just so that we can put some context behind what we're investing in and why we're investing, because current events do actually influence stocks.
Have you guys been keeping up with any of the news? Have you seen any of the news on drought and the heat waves and food shortages and recessions going on?
I mean, there's a lot there, and if you are keeping up with it, or if you're worried, how do you weather this stuff? How do you get through that? Some of the stuff we're doing in this channel is going to help you weather this. Now, maybe not right away. There's some things that you need to do with your personal finances. Talk to your personal financial advisor. We're not your financial advisor, so make sure you work with them on that. But there's things that you're going to need to do to help you get to the point where you can weather that. And this whole channel, everything we're doing, is to help you get to the point where if something like what we're about to talk about actually happens, you're going to be okay.
Right.
At least for the most part.
And we have some time to do that. But it looks like, from what we're seeing in the news, it's coming.
Yeah, there's. I mean, everybody knows about the war in Ukraine. They know about what's going on with Russia. I guess they cut off the nuclear plant from the power grid recently, and there was some concerns about getting the actual European nuclear experts in there just to stop it from some kind of meltdown. The biggest issue there is Russia is stockpiling munitions and vehicles and stuff inside the facility. That's really smart, but also really, really stupid, because if something happens,
boom,
that's not good, not for that facility. So that's going on. We'll try to post some stuff about what's going on in China. Maybe you'll see an article here or there. There's inside of China right now, we're dealing with some pretty serious weather and climate issues. In the west, we've got the Lake Powell and Lake Mead. They're at the lowest levels ever recorded. They're talking about the crops in Southern California. 40% of the production of American fruits, nuts, those kinds of things come out of Southern California.
Absolutely. And not to mention the soil. We'll get to the soil.
That's another issue too. So in China, if we go back to China, we talk about the weather issues. They've got a big problem. The Yangtze, I can say this, the Yangtze River, please correct me here, but their third largest river is almost completely dry. You can go to news articles and see that, where there's almost nothing left. It's a very serious drought. And when I saw that, I was looking at this going, boy, this is bad. So how did they know, and how do they combat this? How do we get past this? So I looked at how they found the data, and there's NASA's got this. If you go to NASA's website, you look at their the drought monitor or the groundwater monitoring. They've got 2 satellites up in space.
I'll put the link in the description.
Yeah, there's 2 of them up there, and what happens is as the satellites go over an area with water, one of them will drop because the gravitational pull is greater, and they can measure the amount of groundwater that's in the earth. So not the stuff you see on the surface, but the stuff underneath, where all the aquifers are. And what they discovered was, in the groundwater, you're seeing the rivers dry up and stuff, but what's happening there is happening 7 times faster underneath the earth. And they're showing pictures of what's happening in Germany and not the Midwest, but the western side of the United States, China in particular. There's a lot of big problems there, and you're thinking, yeah, why do I care? I turn on the water tap and I still have water. Right now you do. They're saying that the areas that are getting wetter were wet to begin with, and the areas that are getting drier were dry to begin with. So you're having a problem where goodness.
I've gotten my COVID shots.
You guys COVID shots.
Both of them.
So you're seeing an area where stuff that was dry is getting drier, stuff that was getting wet is getting wetter, and that's affecting things like food supplies, logistics, just a whole mess of stuff. NASA's talking about how many people are dying of starvation every day. It's a pretty terrible thing. They're also talking about what's going to happen. Like, they predicted the issues in Syria before they happened by measuring the groundwater before that. Well, we're an investment channel. So why do you care about water and what's going on macroeconomically, especially in China?
Other than, living and continuing to be alive.
Yeah, if there's an apocalypse, doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have any food or water, you're in trouble. So,
yeah.
But we're not hope that doesn't happen.
I don't think it's going to get that bad, but it's going to affect finances.
It will affect finances. In China, in order for them to get through some of the 104 degree Fahrenheit days that they've encountered, they are shutting off power to factories. And people are sleeping in tombs, I guess, in some of the provinces, and on bridges.
Tombs.
Yeah, we'll post a link to the article on that. They're talking about what's happening. So the bigger problem with this is production and food supply. So if you're looking at buying stuff or any kind of getting products, it doesn't affect it right now. You're not going to see it right now. But if this continues, you're going to see issues with, we talk about inflation, food prices. It's going to affect the food supply quite a bit. There's a couple of main products out there they're talking about. They just don't have the supply in that. So when I get into all the stuff that's going on, there's a lot of conflict, a lot of bad. There's some good stuff too. Personally, I think, this is just me personally, if they're going to fix this, we got to figure out a couple things. One, we got to drill not wells, but we got to figure out how to better desalinize the oceans, get the water out of the oceans, because
absolutely,
I don't think this climate thing is going to go away. The other thing I think that really could happen to benefit that, so let's think investments, is vertical farming. There's a lot of indoor farming companies out there. Now, do we find the perfect one? Please send us, if you know of any companies that are doing that, great, well, let's look at those. But if you're going to try to find the perfect one, that's going to be very difficult. So what we want to look at is companies that are going to be supplying these venues. Indoor farming, vertical farmings require a lot less water. They're not as impacted by climate change, and probably most importantly at first, they're not impacted by supply chain or logistics problems. You can grow if you're in Manhattan, you can grow a vertical farm in the city.
Right.
You don't have to go to Kansas and truck it in, basically.
Again, the main thing with vertical farming that could be a deterrent is the water. You still need water to grow these, even it's hydroponic water. You need it. You need a good supply of fresh water, and if you don't have that, then these companies aren't going to do great. However, there are some areas in the world that do have a high volume of fresh water, and we happen to live in one of them, Michigan, that is surrounded by
we're very lucky that way.
The largest supply of fresh water in the world. So there are places that they can build to make these viable.
Why are we interested in this? Are we going to invest into it right away? No, we're going to start looking at it. Our portfolio in Dividend Dudes is not diversified enough to justify something that would be considered risky like that.
These are very much more risky than what we're going for, and we still need to get that 12 to 15 stocks that are well diversified and top 100 blue chip stocks that are going to be safe. Then we can use those dividends to start getting these type of stocks that are riskier.
And once we have that, then we're going to be analyzing this stuff as the time goes on. A good example would be, somebody was talking to me about an electric car company recently, and they were saying, hey, I've got this stock, I think it was Rivian was the company they were looking at, and they were thinking, well, this is going to be the great thing. Well, Warren Buffett actually did a video on this, and he talked about how many automotive companies there were from the inception of the car all the way till now. There's like over 5,000 auto companies. Rivian is just another auto company. Do I think it's a good buy? Well, I don't have the math on that, but what I will tell you is it's probably better to buy a company that supplies the automotive manufacturers. So not just Rivian, it could be Tesla, Ford, Honda Motor Corporation, GM, it could be any one of those.
Toyota, yeah.
As long as they're a supplier to that, then you're not limited to by one automotive manufacturer. Remember, you got to protect your principal assets. So sure, Rivian could become the next Tesla, but how do you know that it won't become the next, Tucker car? I mean, right. it could go the other way too.
DeLorean.
So I heard the DeLoreans are coming back.
Yeah, they're making a new one.
I'm kind of interested in that.
The concept looks pretty sweet.
It does. But the point is, in investing, you want to buy companies that are going to be good. Now, in terms of us buying maybe companies that are going to help improve the desalinization process or do vertical farming, there's some good vibes there. There's some good feelings. There's some stuff that you can do to think that, hey, I'm going to actually help people by doing this. And that's very true. You invest in a company that does that, they do well. Guess what? We can now produce food a lot better, a lot cleaner, a lot faster. The stuff that NASA's talking about, all the crazy things that are going on in the news right now, that's not something that's a quick thing. Like, they're talking this stuff is in the next 5 to 6 years, you're going to see it progressively change. And I think that as a society, there's a lot of brain power in our society. I think we can come through. We do have to come together a little bit more than we are right now to fix some of that.
If we just take the engineers at Tesla and the Boring Company, and just whatever Elon Musk companies do, the SpaceX, take their top engineers, put them on desalinization, I think they could probably come up with a viable solution that is cost effective and make it better and refine it. There is already solutions to do that. We can do that. It's just very expensive. So I think they could easily, no, let's do this differently, and come up with it. I'm not an engineer. I don't know for sure, but that's my inclination.
So if we talk about this thought process, right? We talked about all this stuff. We talked about investing. Hopefully you guys are catching on some of the mindset that we have here. The mindset is that you're investing in what a company will do for the future. So you're buying something with the intention that if you take those top engineers, somebody has to fund those.
Right.
Or somebody has to invest in what they will be doing to make sure that it actually does produce something. This is why when we start the portfolio that we have now, and we've got about $100 of passive income coming in from the current portfolio, and you've seen the previous video that Brian and I will have a lot more than that. But in the portfolio that we're starting for you, this is for you to weather this stuff that's coming up. The first goal is to replace the basic passive income, to try to replace the things that you would be not able to weather a storm with. So there's things that you got to do financially to get in front of that, but in this point we're talking about the investments that will help you grow your income, get the dividend checks that you need so that you can invest in other companies that will help with like a growth stock.
Right.
But first, you need that passive income to help weather things. There's things like they're talking about a content recession that's coming up.
Right.
We'll probably talk about that in the next video.
Yeah, I want to do
a little bit more.
I want to do a bigger video on explaining that and how we could weather that. But I mean, really, there is, due to the recession that's happening now, tech companies are pulling back on their brand deals and sponsorships, advertising. So content creators who rely on that for their revenue are going to be hurt. And if that is their only revenue for their lifestyle, then they're gonna bottom out. So I want to do a video on how you could weather that storm. And
diversification.
And you can't.
Diversification.
So stay tuned for that video, and we'll step by step show you how you could be better.
The point is, in all of this, what Brian and I want to get to you guys is that what we're trying to do here is not just talk about the current events, but talk about the strategy that we use around those current events. We talked about maybe the hydroponics farming, the indoor farming, we talked about desalinization, just to start looking at it. Doesn't mean we're going to buy something tomorrow.
Right.
It does mean that it's important to understand what's going on in the field, maybe what a good buy will be, then we'll position ourselves into that field over time.
Look into the future.
And currently what we're doing with the portfolio for everybody, if you're playing along at the home game, you're buying the same stocks, good for you. Make sure that your financial advisor signs off on some of this stuff. Hopefully they do that. But if they don't, well, shame on them. But if they do, that's great. You're playing like the home game. Our goal right now in the Dividend News portfolio is to protect our personal assets, personal income, the passive income that comes along with that, so that we can use this money to invest in future prospects as time goes on. A lot of the stuff that we're buying, you're going to see that is pretty much staple goods. I mean, stuff that people have to have, or they're big suppliers of products that people use every day. And eventually, as time goes on, current events will influence our decisions a little bit more.
Right.
And that'll help you with your portfolio. But if you don't have that passive income and you've been investing in risky stocks, let's take companies that don't necessarily pay dividends, and a recession comes, you get hit with that recession, and you don't have that income, you're hurting, and you might have to sell a stock to pay off bills. And if you're selling a stock to pay off bills, you're probably selling it in a recession. You're probably selling it at a loss.
Yeah, at a high discount. You don't want to do that. Or if you are at retirement age and you're depending on this money for your monthly income and to live on, and now your $1 million is now $500,000, and you're getting a lot less money, and you're selling that stock now, realizing those losses,
right?
Then you have less money to live on, and it's not going to last you as long. So dividend stocks in this aspect do a lot better than the growth.
They do. So we'll start talking about the content creators recession, but the way we weather stuff like this and is try to buy in products that people need. And in the case of Oracle Farms, that will probably help humanity.
Right.
So something that will help things, but these are stuff that people have to have. So if you want to weather this stuff, you want to see what's going on in current events and try to get around all of that. Sometimes if the problem is big enough, no amount of money is going to fix that.
Right.
I mean, if it's an apocalyptic scenario, that's a little different.
Yeah,
but
all bets are off in an asteroid hit or zombie apocalypse or
yeah, I mean,
disaster movie.
If you're starving you don't have any water at all, and the only thing the other guy's got is money,
They're not eating money.
they're not. Yeah, you can't eat money. So we're not changing our portfolio in the event that I'm going to bury gold in my backyard because there's some sort of apocalypse or NASA dictates that there's a huge water problem coming. But we will try to change our investment portfolio to invest in companies that, like General Dynamics. We have General Dynamics. They make a lot of defense stuff. As Brian said, they make war.
They make war happen.
But maybe as time goes on, we find a company that's doing something good to help alleviate some of the upcoming problems. Why do businesses exist? To solve needs.
And this is your way to
problems.
give back. I mean, I call it activism investing. So if you want to make an impact, and this is a way for you to do it without going out and calling your congressman and lobbying Congress
Right.
to enact change, you can enact change through investing in companies who will do that.
But you need a good base to do it. You got to have these dividends started, and then we can start looking at it. Now, if you know of stocks that are kind of up the alley that we're looking at, I think Arrow Farms is one that almost went public. That was a SPAC that never happened, but there's other ones out there. So if you guys know of stuff that out there you want us to look at, we'll put it on our monthly analysis. We've got another stock to buy in a few weeks.
Comment those below.
Yep.
We'll look at them.
And that's good. So we're starting to look at this now. We'll do another current events, and maybe the next video that if you stay tuned, we'll talk about how the recession is affecting the content creators out there, because that's a real thing.
It's a hot button topic right now. That's all we've got.
That's all we've got.
I appreciate you guys being here and listening to our rant.
Listening to actually, it wasn't that long this time.
Yeah. And as always,
Happy investing.